Hi, I'm Carl Azus, explaining events taking place around the world and beyond, as you'll see in a few minutes. Welcome to the show. First up this Wednesday, the Trump administration is planning to impose new tariffs, which are like taxes, on products that the U.S. imports from China. The American government has done this before, this year, and China has retaliated with tariffs of its own on American-made products. So what's different this time around? $200 billion. That's the value of the goods from China that'll be subject to the new tariffs starting next week. Altogether, this could mean that roughly half of everything China sells to the U.S. will be hit by American tariffs. And China is planning to tax an additional $60 billion worth of goods from the U.S. What kinds of goods are we talking about? The Chinese products subject to additional taxes in the U.S. will include things like food seasonings, baseball gloves, and industrial machinery parts. The American products subject to additional taxes in China will include meat, clothes, and auto parts. Some analysts characterize all this as the latest shots fired in a trade war between the two countries, when back and forth tariffs escalate and the prices of imported products rise. But others say it's not a trade war, at least not yet. And a lead economic advisor to the Trump administration says a trade deal with China is still possible. He also says the tariffs are not near a point where they'll have an impact on the U.S. economy. But what kinds of products, things that you might have lying around your living room, could get more expensive in the days ahead?
People are freaking out about a trade war with China. But why? Well, the U.S. imports more products from China than any other country in the world, $505 billion worth of goods in 2017, while only sending $130 billion worth of products to China. This creates a gap of $375 billion, a large part of the trade deficit with China. In the time I've been talking, did you notice all the products in the room that are made in China have disappeared? Now, a trade war with China doesn't mean we'd stop importing these Chinese goods, but it does go to show just how much we depend on them. Let's rewind in case you missed it. For example, this TV. The U.S. imports $146 billion worth of electrical machinery and equipment, the most of anything we import from China. This includes remotes, laptops, and cell phones. Also, sneakers. We import $1.4 billion worth a year. And these umbrellas. The U.S. imported $113 million worth in 2017. And China happens to be the world's largest supplier of umbrellas. And the list goes on. One thing we export a lot of is playing cards. But the cardstock we print on is from, you guessed it, China. There's no tariff, but we still spent $120 million importing cardstock last year. So while these products aren't going anywhere, they could have some steep tariffs on them, which means our lives could get a little more expensive.
A vote has been delayed on President Trump's Supreme Court nominee. The Senate Judiciary Committee was originally scheduled to vote Thursday on whether to recommend that Judge Brett Kavanaugh be confirmed to the High Court. It would then be up to the full Senate to decide whether he'd ultimately get there. But late last week, Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein gave a letter to the FBI that she had received in late July. It accused Judge Kavanaugh of having assaulted a woman when they were in high school in the 1980s. Judge Kavanaugh says he did not assault anyone in high school or at any time. But the Senate Judiciary Committee put Thursday's vote on hold and scheduled a new hearing for next Monday, when they'd interview both Judge Kavanaugh and his accuser, Christine Blasey Ford. Judge Kavanaugh has agreed to testify before the committee, but as of last night, Ford reportedly hadn't gotten back to the Senate on whether she would testify. So it's unclear now whether that hearing will actually take place. 10-second trivia. Which of these events occurred in 1972? The last U.S. troops left Vietnam, astronauts landed on the moon, President Johnson was elected, or the 26th Amendment was ratified? The last time someone visited the moon was during the Apollo 17 mission in 1972. Will the next time be in 2023, when the company SpaceX sends a tourist around the moon? That's what they're planning on, but there's still some work to be done. For one thing, the rocket, named Big Falcon, is still being developed. For another, the spaceship that would carry the tourists is still being developed. But the company has named the man who would be the first passenger, a Japanese billionaire who's bought out the entire flight. He's someone who loves the moon, fashion, and art, and that will factor into the people he's personally choosing to take along with him on a slingshot mission around our natural satellite.
I choose to go to the moon.
Yusaku Maezawa announcing his plans to make history as the first tourist to ride around the moon on a SpaceX commercial flight. The Japanese billionaire purchased all the seats on board the SpaceX Big Falcon rocket. He wants to fly to the moon with a group of artists.
At the moment, I have not decided which artists I'd like to invite. But if possible, I'd like to reach out to top artists that represent our planet from various fields.
SpaceX CEO Elon Musk says that they are working on a redesign of the Big Falcon rocket to get Maezawa and team to the moon, more than 384,000 kilometers away, about a 5-day trip. It is a big challenge for SpaceX and for the new crop of space tourists.
It's dangerous, to be clear. This is dangerous. This is no, walk in the park here. This will require a lot of training. But whenever it's the first flight of something on a new technology, and we're talking about deep space, you have to be a very brave person to do that. This is no small matter.
Maezawa has taken big leaps before, but all of those have been with his feet on the ground. The musician-turned-entrepreneur is known for his relaxed management style in usually conservative Japan, and he's made a name for himself as a big-spending art collector. In a promotional video of his planned space trip, Maezawa says he believes art has the power to promote world peace. SpaceX says it is enabling access to space for everyday people. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos and Virgin boss Richard Branson have also entered the space tourism race. When they are ready to fly, a ticket on one of their rockets would set you back some $200,000 to $250,000. That is a little out of reach for most people, unless you're one of the lucky artists with an invite from Maezawa.
By the way, if you should hear from me, please say yes and accept my invitation. Please don't say no. Okay.
Blastoff for Maezawa and his guests may not happen until around 2023. A trip of a lifetime to make history and inspire art that will be out of this world.
If we told you our last story is about islands, you'd probably think, yes, please. If we told you it was about ant islands, not the ants you're related to, but the kind that sting your feet, you'd probably think, no thank you. They're one of the many unpleasant side effects of flooding, like the kind that Hurricane Florence recently brought the U.S. southeast.
Floating in the floodwaters, it looks like nondescript vegetation until you notice it's moving. Yuck! Yikes! Ant islands! Reporters covering the storm are tweeting images of islands of red ants, the kind that sting.
As the water level rises, the ants cling to each other, forming a living raft.
Their bodies are waxy, water resistant, and look how tough their raft is. Tweeted one admirer, "It is strangely heartwarming to see a species that sticks together in hard times. But not everyone's heart was warmed. Thank you for a week of nightmares. Okay, it could be worse."
So hideous, there is no word to describe them.
These may be smaller than them, but there are way more of them.
If at first glance, when you see some buoyant ants in such abundance where they ain't inhabitants, you'll have a chance perchance to show some taller ants and avoid the incidents that could anger errant ants. Or you might just want to stomp them. All this floating stuff can make folks a little antsy. I'm Carl Antzus for CNN.